Yeah, I've been a fan of this guy for a long time, and I'm looking forward to the conversation. When you have a guest like this on, though, it's hard to do an intro because there's 1,000 things you could include. There's like moving parts and pieces. We're just going to talk about it when I bring him up. And let me see if I can show this picture right here. I'm going to say, I don't know if he can see that up. Can you see that on the screen yet? Okay, you can't. You're on your phone. Well, for those of you listening on the podcast, I am showing a picture right now of Diamond Dallas Page, who's about 6'5", standing with his hand on his hip, smiling, holding his other foot with his toe. And I got to be honest, when I bring him up, I'm just going to let him know, as a guy that feels like I should be more flexible, it kind of pissed me off a little bit. Here he comes. 3, 2, 1. What's
you mean? How about this? In the face or over there?
That really kind of
6'4" of twisted steel and sex appeal, and 2 more months from 66 years young.
I'm telling you. I started looking at those pictures and I was like, I used to be flexible, and I still do my stretches in the morning, but I can't. It's been a long time since my feet have seen anything like that. I can promise you.
What it really comes down to is this. All right. How old are you right now, Clint?
I'll be 54 by the time this comes out.
Okay. So happy birthday, by the way, my friend.
Thank you, sir.
It's all about how, especially as you get in your late 40s and 50s, how you hold back the hands of time. And you see, for me, I didn't start wrestling until I was 35. My career didn't take off till I was 40. So I've always been searching for ways to hold back the hands of time. And at some point, and I'm the guy who wouldn't be caught dead doing yoga the first 42 years of my life.
Right.
But at 40, my career took off like crazy. 41, 42, that was 97 and 98. I was living the dream on the highest level possible. I mean, everything I was trying to achieve, I achieved, from 3-time world champion, which is like our Oscar in the business, to being a Hall of Famer, which is as real can be. And then I achieved that, 41 and 42, 97, 98, I was on top of the world. And then I just signed a multi-million-dollar 3-year deal, and I blew my back out. I broke my back. I actually ruptured my L4 and L5 so badly that 3 spine specialists told me I was done. And I went to one in New York, here in Atlanta, and Houston, Texas. They were the best. And they're all telling me I'm done. I just signed a multi-million-dollar deal. If I don't get in that ring, I don't get paid. So this is one of the most important things that I learned. Flexibility is youth, not just in the body, but in the mind. Being flexible enough to say, okay, I'm going to push my opinions of what I think yoga is away. And I'm going to, because my wife at the time, me and Kimberly were married, and she's like, please try it, because it could really help you with all the things you do on top of this to help you. In the first 3 weeks, I felt a significant difference. I was super frustrated, though, because no one of the tapes that I watched did modifications. So I had to figure that stuff out. And within the first 3 weeks, I felt a significant difference, but I knew I wasn't getting everything I needed. So one night before I went to bed, because I'm doing this like 20 minutes a day, 3 times a day. That's how I started.
Wow.
And because my job is to try to get back in the ring and prove these doctors wrong. One night, I'm doing rehab at the same time. And I've rehabbed by that time both shoulder surgeries, both knee surgeries. So I know a lot about rehab, but now I'm learning how to rehab the back. So I mixed that rehab with that yoga positions I was doing. Then I added in, over a period of time, old school calisthenics done with a slow burn movement, because I couldn't be moving any weight. When you blow out your back, that's the center of the universe, especially to a guy who lifts weights.
Right.
And I was a meathead. So I mixed in old school calisthenics with a slow burn movement where I would lower 3, 2, 1, hold there for 3, come up 3, 2, 1, lower for 3, hold for 3, then go into cobra, into down dog. In the beginning, I was doing them on my knees. Eventually, I get off my knees. Eventually, those 3-second push-ups became 5-second push-ups. The 5-second push-ups became 10-second push-ups. So that's a 30-second push-up. Slow burn. And I figured out then, every time you engage or flex a muscle, this is science. Your heart has to beat faster to get the blood to the muscle. So completely by accident, Clint, I developed this workout that's kick-ass cardio. I prove it by putting you on a heart monitor. Comes right up on the app. Tells you when you're not in your zone, and over your zone. So kick-ass cardio. Dramatically increase your flexibility. How? By breaking up scar tissue and alleviating pain. Strengthening your core at a whole different level with minimal joint impact. In less than 3 months, I was back in the ring. At 42, they said my career's over. At 43, I got that.
Yeah.
That world championship gold belt. So I became such a believer in this is something I'm going to have to do the rest of my life. 15 years ago, like I said, I'm going to be 66. At 51, I made a decision. I'm going to stop lifting weights. People who see my body, my strength, and my arms and my shoulders, they're like, "You lift weights still?" I go, "I didn't lift the weights for 15 years."
Wow.
That's body on body, and knowing how to train so that as of up till I was like, in my 50s, people would say, "Man, I can't believe how young you look," and blah, blah, blah. And I say, listen, I'm not training to be 65.
Right.
Because that's going to be here tomorrow. And here it is. I'm going to be 66. I said, I'm training for 75, 85, 95, and 105. I'm going to keep my mobility as long as God lets me stay on this earth.
What did we
I'm going to take that foot and hold over my head until the day I die.
Well, we talked about this before we came on, that song, "Don't Let the Old Man In." That's what it is, right? That's it. I went to yoga when I was married. This was probably 15 years ago, and I was a meathead too. I still like to lift a little bit, and I hit the heavy bag and all this. But I went to yoga, and I'll tell you, when I went to yoga 3 times, and I knew I was over my head when I was in this room full of, it was ladies,
Sure.
and my wife at the time. But they get me in this position, and I don't know the name of it, but they get me there, and I'm like, I'm pretty flexible at the time, right? I get in this position, and then they go, "Now hold it." I'm like, "No, wait a minute. I could get in the position." The holding it part is the stuff I couldn't do. I'm like, I ended up being the weakest person in the room pretty fast.
But that all comes with repetition. And like, I don't even call what I do yoga. What I do is either DDP Yoga. Today I brand it, and most people call it this, DDPY. Why? Because I want people to stop calling it just effing yoga, because it's not. Like, that's not what I developed. What we're going to do, Clint, is I'm going to hook you up with my app. And people go, "Oh, man, your workouts will kill me." My workouts start off in bed. Like, you can't get out of bed?
Yeah.
I got 3 workouts for you to help you get out of bed so you can sit in a chair and do my chair force workouts. Engaging and flexing as you're moving in a chair, which is going to help strengthen your body so you can stand up and hold on to a chair in my Stand Strong workouts. So it helps you get up and get down, build balance, helps break up scar tissue, and create strength. Then maybe you don't need the chair anymore. So,
well, we're going to circle back to the Transforming Lives, because the DDP Yoga is, you can go to DDPYoga.com. People can find out you're transforming lives all around the world. So we're going to end up coming back a little bit to the yoga and, of course, podcasting, because you and Jake.
Not yoga. What's the name, Clint?
DDPY. DDPY.
There you go, baby.
See, I'm a fast learner, man. Fast learner. So let's real quick start. You were, if I'm not mistaken, and I actually was talking to the guy that helped you set this up. I grew up watching like Mean Gene Okerlund on the Saturday morning wrestling, Tommy Wildfire Rich, Mr. Wrestling 1 and 2. And so I'm the guy that the mom and dad had to say, "You can't hit your sister or your friends over the head with a chair," because that's what I grew up watching. But you were at the time the youngest rookie in pro wrestling at 35. Is that
rookie?
I mean, the oldest rookie. Yeah.
The oldest one, because I was already in. I tried it when I was 23. It didn't work out. Came back at 31 as a manager while I'm running big nightclubs. Yeah. So in the first 3.5 years, it cost me money to be Diamond Dallas Page. You know, between the outfits and, you know, because I dressed like that, zebra skin boots and leopard skin jackets and rock and roll. You know, I used to say, you know, I was a guy who wanted to be, ran a nightclub, wanted to be a wrestler, but ran a nightclub. Like you can imagine the mother-in-laws are like, oh, we want him.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Well, that's like growing up and saying, hey, I want to be a podcaster. Everybody's like, no, you don't, you know. When you got into it, though, from what I understand, how long were you a manager before you moved on into the ring as a wrestler?
Say that again, because someone was trying to call and I did.
Oh, that's okay. How long were you a manager before you moved on to wrestling?
4 years as a manager and color commentator with Dusty Rhodes down in Florida Championship Wrestling. And then when Dusty left the WWF, when he got out of the polka dots, which was a rib that Vince played on him, and Dusty still got it over. Yeah. I came into WCW and I was managing. It took me 4 months to get a contract. Then I was into the contract about 5 months, and I was 35 and a half. And Magnum TA came up to me one day. He was Dusty's right-hand man. And he said, listen, D, he's like, we can't let you manage anymore. And I'm like, what did I do wrong, dude? I'll fix it. He's like, yeah, you really can't. And I'm like, what do you mean? He goes, the hair. I had hair down to here, you know.
Oh, yeah.
The crazy lions had a hair. And he's like, the clothes and the bling and the diamond dolls and the rap. He goes, when you're out there, no one's paying attention to the wrestling because you're taking too much away from it. And I go, Magnum, are you telling me I'm too over the top for professional effing wrestling? And he just laughed just like you did. He said, D, not your fault. What we should have done was put you in a pair of tights and boots and see if you could do this. And he walked away. And at that time, I was managing the Fabulous Freebirds. And the Birds, these guys, look at this great picture of the three of us back in the day.
Oh, my gosh.
And
yeah.
Those guys ribbed me so hard all the time. But on that day, they were so sympathetic. They felt so bad for me because now I'm losing the dream. I just worked 4.5 years on trying to get 4 years to get to. And now they're telling me I can't do it. I can do color commentating with Eric Bischoff, but we're like fourth string color commentators, you know, and play-by-play guy. And I told the Birds, I was like, you know what? Doesn't matter. I go, I got 7 months left of my contract. I'm going down to the power plant. I'm going to learn how to wrestle. Now, you're Jimmy. I'm Michael. Michael looks at Jimmy and Michael holding on to Jimmy. He's laughing so hard. He thought it was the funniest thing he ever heard. Fell down on the ground laughing. And I gave him both the "you're the number one" sign and walked to the ring. And the really cool part about that story is, Clint, I was 35 and a half when I was 40 and a half, almost 41. When I was 40, again, over 39, I was 39. It was 3 months before my 40th birthday. I had a match with Sting. And we went out there, and Sting gave me a lot. I was a middle card guy at that time, and he gave me a lot. We had a hell of a match. He let me lay it out. And the next day, you know, I felt really good about it, you know, even though I put him over. Of course, I'm going to put Sting over. He's a franchise. But yeah. I came back home. I got to get to the gym. So I ran inside, grabbed my stuff. And as I was walking outside, I hear the phone ring, and I just let it go to the answer machine. And I hear, Page, P.S. So Michael P.S. Hayes on the phone. I run over to the phone. I ain't talked to him in a couple of years. I pick up the phone. Michael, man, how you doing, man? He's like, son, bitch, God damn. Mother, Mike, what's the matter? What's the matter? Paige, you know how sometimes you don't want someone to pick up the phone. You call in the middle of the day, you want to leave a message. I said, yeah, you want me to hang up so you can call back? No, God damn. Yeah, Paige, saw your match last night. He said, I have never been so happy to eat crow in all my life.
Wow,
Said,
that's cool.
Hell of a job, kid. And he hung up on me.
Wow, that's a good phone call. Did you have?
It was a huge phone call. Huge.
Did you ever have any? Because were you a fan of wrestling before you got into it? I mean, like you were doing the bar, running bars in Florida. Was there any? First of all, were you a fan? And then when you started getting in the ring with some of these people, were there ever moments where you went, "Holy shit, I'm doing this"?
All the time, dude.
Yeah.
I mean, going back to a kid whose favorite wrestlers were in the WWF. Remember, I'm still going to be 66. Handsome Jimmy Garvin, Handsome Jimmy Valiant, Dusty Rhodes, Superstar Billy Graham. Like these guys these were bigger than life to me. And I tried it when I was 23. It didn't work out for me, but that's how passionately I loved it. And I hurt my knee. And on the third match I had, and I was going to go back. My doctor told me to take off a month. And I got my first chance to run this little rock and roll joint. And I've been in the bar business at that point for 6 years. So for me, I'm definitely taking that gig, and I'll still go back to my wrestling. But it's funny how sometimes things that happen in your life can totally sidetrack you. And for me, it was the booze, the broads, and the party, and I literally stopped watching. And I talk about this on DDP Snake Pit. So I'll give you a little piece of it. But if you go to episode 1, which we have been DDP Snake Pit, me and Jake Snake Roberts, and I'm not bragging, I'm just shocked. But on iTunes for the last 2 weeks, we have been the #1 podcast on iTunes, which is mind-blowing. The first week we were even on the sports section of their iTunes, which has got everyone who's anyone. We were #7. And this week on Spotify, on the sports section, we're #5, which is crazy to me. But I talk about the beginning part of just where I'm just talking about right there, and getting to where WrestleMania blows up huge. And I'm so pissed. I'm so pissed that I didn't pay my dues. That I was so mad at myself that I stopped watching wrestling completely. And all I'll tell you, because you'll be able to pick it up on DDP Snake Pit, one night, well, I guess one afternoon, I'm flicking the channels. Now, this is 1986, right? That's like 7 years of not watching wrestling. I'm flicking the channels and I catch Gorilla Monsoon and this dude with a leather jacket on and a boa and these crazy sunglasses and do-rag, and it's Jesse the Body Ventura. I'm like, this guy's amazing. Who is he? And then the first guy, and I'm going to drop it right here, the first guy to come through the curtain got a bag over his shoulder. Long hair, a Fu Manchu with swag before anyone knew what the hell swag was. Jake Snake Roberts was full of it. And I watched him in the ring. I watched him promo. I, honest to God, Clint, now knowing I've already wrestled 3 matches, I know it's a work, but I can't see through Jake Snake Roberts' shit.
Right.
So I literally called my buddy John Shipley up, who we started together, training together, with a guy that Gorilla Monsoon would give us his name because we saw Gorilla at a wrestling show. And after the match was over, the main event, he got out of the ring in Asbury Park, New Jersey, had his bag right next to where the ring was, grabbed his bag and walked out in his tights with everybody else. And that's how we got to Gorilla and found out this guy named Tito Torres. And that's how the connection of that happened, of me actually wrestling, period. But I mean, I called Johnny Shipley up and I'm like, bro, did I miss something? Like, I know wrestling's a work, but sometimes it's a shoot? Like, because this guy, Jake the Snake Roberts, man, I can't see through his shit. He goes, don't be such a mark. He's just as good as it gets, you know? And I won't tell you anything more, because how I met Jake and all the other shit, it's like sometimes God will give you that planets lining up.
Yeah. Well,
And
I'll give
what
you
do you do?
I'll give you an endorsement. I've already watched on YouTube and listened to the first podcast. It was great, and they're full of great stories. So if you like that story, you ought to go check the first episode out at least, because it's full of stories. And that's some of that stuff that I took away from that first podcast y'all did was, I sometimes, as you get older, of course, everything, you lose the illusion of what it really is. The business side of wrestling, sometimes as I get older, is where's the real drama and where's the drama that's on the screen? You know, who likes who doesn't. And I didn't know you sometimes we're wrestling 50, 30, 70 days in a row. And I was like, man, that is, I don't care what anybody says, it's part magic, it's part acting, it's an athlete too. It's all that mixed. Did the business ever wear you down, or did you like the business side of it?
I loved the business in general, but the business side will wear you down. You know, like the manipulation, the backstabbing, you know, because you have your boys, you know, and you got your crew, and you align with different guys that fit your personality, you know, and that you get along with. And it's not a lot of drama hanging out with them, you know.
Yeah.
But there's times when I was making towards the end with WCW, because there was so many things that were so effed up back then. But you know, you're making $1 million+ and you're complaining. You know, you're complaining because you actually think like it'll be easier somewhere else. Like, no, when that money goes away, it's like being a pro athlete. When that money goes away, you're a regular person again.
Yeah. Well, that's the other thing I was going to ask, as we kind of segue, because I promise I'm not going to keep you really a long time. But, you know, the fans, you got the business side, you've got the stories, and there's, I could do a whole podcast on just stories. I would love to pick your brain as the fan, but then you've got fans that come up. Some people that I've talked to, pro athletes I've had on the podcast, sometimes fans, they didn't look at fans super good. You know, fans got on their nerves sometimes. Are you the guy that fans got on your nerves, or did you like the fans coming up and giving you some grief every now and then?
I was a fan, you know, for so long, you know, and then I checked out for a little while, but I appreciate what the guys did and what they put their body through. And I would appreciate it at a whole different level once I started doing it in my 30s and 40s. But I saw something, a guy named, and I'm sure you heard of him, Zig Ziglar.
Oh yeah.
He's a great motivational speaker, big Bible thumper, but I mean, the shit that he said, so many things, quotes that he said are so powerful. But the one that I kind of really attached myself to as a 20-year-old was, you can get whatever you want as long as you help enough people get what they want. So, you know, for me, my whole life has been about helping people and moving people to be the best person they can be. And when it came to being respectful to the fans, as long as somebody's being respectful to me, because, you know, some fans can get pretty damn rude.
Yeah.
But, you know, I don't have a lot of time for them, but I'll still give them a little bit. But, you know, overall, I look at, like, when I first met Denzel Washington, I was in a restaurant. He was cool as hell to me. Like, that's how I wanted him to be. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's how I am. Like, you meet me, and I'm going to shake your hand and go, what's your name?
Yeah.
Like, my wife is always blown away, no matter, and I could be recognized by 5 people in a row sometimes. Depends where we are, and he's like, you're always so nice to everybody. It's like, yeah, because that's their memory, and
Yeah.
you're an asshole to one person, that person's going to help to tell that story 1,000 times.
Well, you talk about in that first podcast too, that how, and I'm going to get, I hope I get this right. The fact that Jake the Snake said he believed in you, and I think Dusty Rhodes said it later to you, how much that meant. Now you've kind of, you're this age. Have you had the opportunity to return the favor? Have you looked for people, not just through your DDPY, but just in the wrestling world too?
I mentor so many different young men and women, in our business, that I'm there for them to help them always. And, the ones that, I gravitate towards people who put the work in. If you don't put the work in, if you're just giving everything, I'll still be nice to you, but if you don't put the work in, we don't have a lot to talk about.
Right, you don't have a lot in common. Yeah.
But to me, I tell everybody, never from wrestling to people, who do my program, don't ever underestimate the people, the power. The first time I ever said this quote, I was inducting Jake into the Hall of Fame, and I had written this whole thing for him. But this was one of the moments where I just improv'd after something I had said. And I said, never underestimate the power you give someone by believing in them. More importantly, never underestimate the power you give yourself by believing in you. Now, there's a quote. Have you seen the David Geffen? I want to say it's on HBO, or might be Netflix. Have you seen that documentary they did on him, The Inventing of David Geffen? Did you see it?
No, sir, have not.
All right, I'm going to pull up a quote here.
Yeah.
I'm all about quotes, and I'm hoping this, I've never checked on my iPad here. Oh, here it is. Let me pull this up here. David. There it is. Okay. So I'm watching this documentary on David Geffen. David Geffen is a warlord when it comes to entertainment, from music to movies to everything. I mean, this guy is as big as it gets. He's bigger or as big as Spielberg. Okay. So after he gets done talking, in like, maybe it's about 5 minutes in the segment, what he says is a quote. I got to go back because I want to know exactly what he said there. So, I got closed caption on. So this is what he said. He said, I've always believed that each person invents themselves for whatever reason, through whatever circumstances, whatever he or she has gone through. Now, here's the quote that made me go back and write all this down. That we are a figment of our imagination. And some people have a greater ability to imagine more than others. And that's, I literally I'm doing a Positively Unstoppable $250,000 challenge. And I do it every year. I've done it the last 4 years in a row for my company. If you go to positivelyunstoppable.com, you can join this challenge. And it's about physical weight loss and mental, like, how did your mental health change during this time? And then you document everything. So I ended the meeting. I went on Facebook literally before I came on this. And I went on the Positively Unstoppable Challenge group, and I ended with that quote that just came out of nowhere. I pulled it up. And I wanted people to understand you can be whoever you want to be. You have to be able to imagine it first, though, then literally see it and how it breaks down, and then set goals and then start to put the work in to get there. Because, I mean, I was reading at a third grade level at the age of 30. I grew up in ADD and dyslexia when no one knew what the hell ADD or dyslexia was. They just thought we were stupid. You know, for me to read the words the way most people would be reading them in a book, I the bottom line is DDP couldn't READ. And for me to, at 31, to make a decision that I'm going to learn how to read proficiently, reading and writing at 31, that was a challenge. But as soon as I started, and the first thing I did was set a goal for myself that I was going to read a book from cover to cover. Mm-hmm. Now, that's not a big deal to most people who are listening to this podcast. But for me, it was overwhelming. So, like all goals that are overwhelming, break it down. I'm going to read one page from that book every day. Now, I'll tell you, I always say, just don't think it, ink it. But if I don't write that down and put it everywhere, I bet you I would have stuck with it, even without writing it down, for a week, maybe 2, maybe 3. But life would have got in the way in the nightclub business. And at some point, I'd have forgot all about it. Oh, yeah, we got to get back to that. But now I don't even remember what I even read. But I didn't do it like that. I wrote read today, and I put it in about 20 different places of my house. On my mirror, my bathroom, my shower door, my refrigerator. I mean, it was everywhere. Every single night I read at least one page from that book. Sometimes I'd go back and read a page and remember where I was at to read the next page. And it took forever, but I finished it. And it literally took till I was 47 in LA, living out there doing the acting thing. And I ran into a buddy of mine. We actually had a surfing accident together. We became friends out of it. And he ended up telling me he was dyslexic. And he turned me on to a woman named Ruth at the Eris Learning Center in Culver City, California. And I would go see her every Monday and Thursday. And she said I took home more homework than anyone ever. A guy who never, ever did homework. And she really helped me. And my reading and my writing ability started to get a little bit better and a little bit better. And now at 66, I'm a pretty good reader. You know, not great, but a pretty good reader, because I still have, dyslexia and ADD. I just learned how to control it more.
Do you still read books, or do you listen to books on Audible now? Because I listen to a lot more books on Audible now. I wish I still read more.
Because I want to hear what they have to say, but there's still things I read all the time, Yeah. And my wife now, her name is Paige, and her last name was McMahon.
Oh,
not crazy,
okay.
But
yeah,
now she's Paige.
That's funny.
But she's brilliant. She is exactly like my first wife, Kimberly. They both had their masters by the time they were 23 in marketing. They're both gorgeous and still today gorgeous and really, really smart. And so I surround myself with really, really, really smart people.
When did you kind of and we'll kind of move it towards the transforming lives. When did you know? Because there's a difference from when you started taking it was yoga before it became DDPY, when it was just yoga to you. Sure. When did you know you wanted to help people with that and that there was potential? Was there the one person that you helped, or was it just like everybody needs to know this, let's make it happen?
No, it was really about me in the beginning. And then I started to help buddies of mine who were regular dudes like me, and they would do it with me all the time. So then I started making I was in LA doing the acting thing. And, like I said, it took 8 years to be an overnight success in wrestling. It took 8 years and $548,000 before I made a dime to, make it with DDPY. And my acting career, really, I've been at that for 20 years, and I've done, a little bit of good work here and there, but I got a show coming out, not this quarter, but next quarter of 2022. It's called Guardians of Justice. And that's my show. And we'll see what it turns into.
What's it about?
It's a very dark. It used to be way darker before Netflix got their hands on it. It's going to be a Netflix original.
Okay.
And it's really cool. It's like it's so different. Take the the superhero mentality, like how Batman, he never gets older than 40. He doesn't drink, he doesn't cuss. Nighthawk, he's in his 60s. He cusses, he drinks, he chews on pills because he's got cancer, and he kills for the greater good, which everything is whatever he thinks the greater good is. And the really neat thing about it, it sometimes will start to look like a graphic novel, and then we'll come out and it'll be real people doing shit, and then back to graphic novel. And there's 8 different types of 2D animation, there's 3D animation, and there's claymation. Wow. And all of this is wrapped through this journey that these Guardians of Justice go on. And it starts in 1947 and quickly ends up in 1987. And anybody, because it's not our world, but it's like another dimension of our world.
Yeah.
And the shit that was going on in 1987 is reflected heavily on what's happening with where we're going and what we're doing. So my point is, when I started the acting thing out in LA, this answers your question.
Mm-hmm.
I got really frustrated, man. I got really frustrated because I had already helped like 30 guys get jobs in professional wrestling. I'd help different actors, be a part of what we did, because they loved what we did. And man, when I went to LA, I didn't get the love, and I just kept working. And at some point I got really frustrated and negative. And at some point I started to, there's a documentary on Amazon right now, Amazon Prime. Of course, The Resurrection of Jake the Snake is there, but the other one is Relentless.
I watched part of that, by the way, real quick. That's a good, I watched as much as I could. I watched about half of it. It's really good, by the way.
Resurrection?
Yeah.
Resurrection is amazing. I think it's the best documentary, one of the best documentaries ever. Not because I'm in it or it's Jake's story, but it's just so heartfelt. But the other one we did was called Relentless, and that's up on Amazon Prime too. And that really shows my whole journey from me blowing my back out to where we are today. And that journey to get there, at some point I was so just disillusioned with the whole Hollywood acting thing that I focused everything on this and knew that this was going to take me to a different spot. And I always tell people, you find something you love to do, figure out a way to get someone to pay you to do it, and do that for a living. Yeah. And that's a podcasting thing, that if you can make a living out of talking and enjoying what you're doing, that's the key to life. And that's what I did with, Steve Austin. When you watch Relentless, you will laugh your ass off, because Steve Austin thought I was crazy, because we lived together for his first year that he was in Los Angeles. And he lived with me because me and my wife had just split up. And every morning he'd see me down there working on this, what was going to become DDP Yoga. And he was like, "What are you doing, kid? You're putting all this money into this thing. It's not going to go anywhere." And
have you talked to him since it's gone somewhere? Have you talked to him since?
Oh, of course. Yeah. He's been with me the whole ride. I just did a really great podcast with him. He doesn't call it a podcast. It's his show. It's on Peacock.
Yeah.
But man, we got such rave reviews from that. And I mean, we sat around and, you know, split 2 bottles of wine and just talked about the beginning parts, which he didn't know about a lot of that,
Right.
you know, beginning parts of my career. And we had a great time with it. He's been with me, almost 30 years now, you know? So we're super tight.
Well, the show I was referring to was Relentless. That's the one I'd watched about half of.
Okay.
That's the one I got through about half of it yesterday, and then I do a bunch of this stuff, so I just hadn't finished it. But I'm going to finish it tonight when I'm settling down, because I loved it. It's a good show.
Thank you, man.
Yeah, it's real good.
We just try to be raw with the story, and you know, we filmed the good, the bad, and the ugly. You know? And we use it because that's life.
Are you we're getting ready to wrap it up here in a minute. I want to talk about the podcast, but are you it seems like you're a really disciplined person, but if I were to look at your day, are you really regimented? I mean, like, I'm up, I do this, I do that.
I try to fit, like, the biggest, most important thing to me is, like, I'm all about preventative maintenance. Okay. Not like thinking, oh God, I'm hurt, I need to fix this. It's like, I need to fix it before it happens. And I've had a bunch of concussions and I've knocked a bunch of guys out, not trying to.
Yeah.
Shit happens, you know, it's not checkers out there, you know? So I literally get in a hyperbaric chamber as soon as I wake up. I hang with my wife, get her some coffee, you know, we hang for a little bit. And then she comes down, she puts me in my hyperbaric chamber, which goes to 15 PSI, which means I'm going down 45 to 50 feet below sea level with the pressure, with the oxygen, while I'm on my phone, while I'm practicing the next inspirational speech I'm going to do, while I'm working on my Espanol, while I'm doing stuff to help my mind to grow. I get out of the chamber, I get on the mat, and today I did an hour and 15 minutes of the most challenging shit you could ever even watch, never mind do.
Holy crap.
Again, I'm preparing for 75, 85, 95. I'm not, you know, not preparing for 66. That's here in a couple months, man. And then from there, normally I'll either go into steam or sauna, my infrared sauna. These are all things that help clean your body out. And then I'm going to go off to do whatever needs to be done. And I literally had 3 different podcasts. It was our contest I had to do. I had to do all our numbers, where we had a 2-hour meeting that had all my financial people, you know, telling me about, you know, our year end. And we had an unbelievable year. Every year has gotten better. Every year since 2012, our anniversary where Arthur's video went viral is May of 2012. And we'll be 10 years of incredibly successful since then. And awesome. Been very blessed. So I give back a lot because I'm a karma guy.
Yeah. Well, I say that a bunch. Sometimes you're giving it, you know, paying it forward, and sometimes you're paying it back in life. And that's the way I look at it. Hey, last question I have, and then I'm going to ask you to play a quick 60-second game that I ask all my first-time guests to play. Do you like podcasting, and why did you start a podcast? And you and Jake the Snake Roberts is a good combo because, like I said, I watched the first one, so it was fun to watch.
You know, I didn't want to do it because when I was with Steve, you know, Steve has one of the biggest podcasts on the planet, Steve Austin. And me and him were super tight, and I was with him, and the guy Norm, who owns Podcast One, was like, go, because we advertise with them too. We were the first advertisers with Steve and with Jericho, and because those guys, they bring our people, and you know, they wanted me to do it. I'm like, nah, I have no desire. And basically, because to do especially like a guest-oriented one, you know, you put a lot of work in before you bring on your guests. So there's hours that people don't see. Yeah. They just think you're talking, you know. But I know how much work goes into it. And Jake, when he went through Resurrection, which was 8 years ago when he got sober. Every year or two, I do a little follow-up so people can know where Jake was at. And about 6 months ago, I said, we ain't done a follow-up in like 3 years. And he was staying at my house for a couple of days. I said, why don't we go over and do it? He goes, why don't we do it right before we leave? I'll do it and I'll go to the airport from there. I was like, perfect. So we sat down. We did like 30 minutes, just me and him talking. And everybody like put it over huge. But when he left, he texted me and he said, man, you have really upped your game. He's like, the storytelling is like at a different level. And, the way we worked each other back and forth and we didn't step on each other. And the information that you got out, I was really blown away. He goes, we need to do this. And I text him back. I go, do what? He goes, a podcast. So I pick up the phone and I call him. I go, bro, I have no desire to do that. And he said, I don't want you to do it on your own. I want to do it with you. I said, so you want, and that's really hard for me to say no to Jake because I don't have all this without Jake, because Jake took me under his wing, and you watch DDP Snake Pit, you'll hear it all, and all the inside stories, and I've always, that Jake wanted to do something else that really uses his mind. Like one of the things when I left him that first day when me and Steve Yu went down to film him, first day we filmed him in 2012, when we left there, Steve was like, so what do you think? I said, man, I can't imagine ever having a real conversation with my buddy again. He's that far gone. But what had to happen, and this happens with a lot of addicts, the booze, the pills, the coke, the crack, it creates fog in the brain. And over time, though, your body wants to get that shit out of there, and about 3.5 years ago, 4 years ago, I was thinking to myself, man, I don't even know this Jake Roberts. Like, he is so back to being sharp. And he was sharp even when he was doing a lot of drugs and shit. But that was younger, So now he's in his 60s. I'm thinking, man, he's really got his act down. So to be able for when he said that to me, and I thought, me and you, huh? Man, we've been awful successful together. I said, only if we can get Conrad Thompson. And Conrad's got everyone who's anybody, Bischoff, Shivani, Kurt Angle, Jeff Jarrett, Bruce Pritchard. I mean, he's got some of the biggest wrestling podcasts out there. And I said, if we can get Conrad, I'll do it. I called up Conrad, who runs a multi-million-dollar mortgage agency, huge, I mean huge, and 7 podcasts. And he goes, I'd love to do it. I was like, oh, God. I was like, okay, let's do it. And what Conrad has is the infrastructure.
Yeah.
He just doesn't have the podcast. He's got the advertising guy going out and finding that. He's got the PR guy. He's got the graphic designers. I mean, he's got everything. So all we had to do was have a meeting with him a couple of times, and I laid out what I wanted to talk about it. And Conrad is so great, which you saw, in DDP Snake Pit. He's so great for whenever we slow down, he comes in and he'll have something that is either directly related to that or something that says, let's shift the gears and go over here. Yeah. And that's what's so great, because Jake and I don't ever have to think about what we say, because we just talk about what we live and what we think. And one of the cool things I just edited episode 3. 2's up, 1 and 2's up right now. But next week, we're doing something that no one's done yet. And when I say there's 5,000 wrestling podcasts, that's easily number in the world. Easily. Maybe more like 20,000. And I've looked into this. Not one podcast reviewed the show Heels. Do you know what Heels is?
Mm-mm.
Okay, that's another reason why people don't know.
Right.
And that's the reason why people didn't follow up on it. Heels, I saw this script 3 years ago. And I saw the one part, it was called Wild Bill, the guy. And I'm like, I got to play that guy. So I got a hold of Julie Yorn, one of the producers. And it was like 3 years before it even got, so probably 4 years ago. And the bottom line is, I didn't get the part, but I never got to audition for it either. But I read the script, so I knew what it was. And then it came out, and Stephen Amell, the Green Arrow, that guy has that series for 10 years. He's a huge wrestling fan. And I talk about it in episode 3 about how I saw him at All In, which was Cody Rhodes' big thing with the Young Bucks. And that whole thing happened because Cody was being interviewed, Dusty's son, and he had said that he thought him and the Young Bucks and Kenny Omega could draw like 10,000 people. And David Meltzer, threw a flag. He's like, listen, you're getting way over your head there. You might be able to do 3,000 or 4,000, but never 10. And Cody saw that and went on Twitter and said, hey, Dave, I'll take your bet. And they ended up doing a place in Chicago. In 30 minutes, it sold out 11,246 seats.
Wow.
But it was the way the fans were looking for something different than what the WWE was processing.
Yeah. Well, it's changed a lot in the last 20 years. Wrestling's changed a bunch in the last 20 years.
A lot. And, but it's just another evolution of what it is. And what they did, Stephen Amell was on that card. And I was like, who is this kid? He's pretty good. And then I came down because I was backstage with Cody, and he was like, I said, who was that kid in the ring? He goes, that's Stephen Amell. I go, that was Stephen Amell? And I walked over, and I'd never met him before. And I gave him a hug. I was like, dude, man, for an actor, for just anybody, you did a great job. But for an actor, you killed it.
Wow.
And he loves the business, and he got behind this project once they put him as the lead. But no one's talked about it because it's on Stars. So it's not like it's on HBO or Showtime. You know what I mean? It's on Stars. A lot of people don't have Stars. Well, I said, Jake, here's what we're going to do. Come episode 3, we don't talk about it. Night before, we watch the show, and then we talk about it there. So, he came in, and we started watching, and he's on one side, I'm on the other. We don't say shit. Might have a comment here or there, but we're writing down our notes. And then we go on and we talk about whether we liked it or not. And wherever we see something we do like, we put it over, and something we don't like, we throw a flag. It's like, you guys are out there and you're trying to get regular people and wrestling fans to watch it. Well, here's 2 Hall of Famers' opinion of what you've done.
I like the fact you still use the lingo with, put it over or throw the flag. I like that. You bring that into the real life. I think that's pretty cool, man. I look forward to keeping up with the podcast. I want to make sure everybody knows you can go to DDPYoga.com, and off your page there, they can find out about the app. They can find out about the documentaries, all that, right?
Sure.
Okay.
It's all there, and our Positively Unstoppable challenge is up there too. And everything I tell people, don't listen to a word I say about my own program. There is a member site of people who do my program, and it's I used to write it just DDP Yoga as one word because I didn't want to separate them both. But at some point, I had to do it just for grammar's sake. But it took off, and people use just DDP Yoga. They'll spell it a lot of times. Yeah. And it's a members site on Facebook. It started with a couple of buddies of mine who did the program, and they wanted to just, have a group, that did it. Now there's over 70,000 people. And Clint, I challenge anyone to go on there and read what people write. It's the most gratifying experience on the planet for me, because here these people are coming and doing my program, and it's not just changing lives. Sometimes it's really helping people own their lives, and sometimes it's people saving their lives. And that's you can't, like I always say, when getting someone to chant your name, whether it's DDP or Stone Cold or Rocky or Hogan, whoever, that's hard. You get some people, you get a couple of you, but to get everybody doing it, that's really hard. It's like the internet like that when it comes to getting some people to write your stuff. You can do that, but getting 70,000 people to be writing your shit, it gets better and better. Like there's stories and people helping them. Can't fake that shit.
No, you can't. And it's got to feel good too. But I know you say, what you're doing is transforming lives and saving lives, but now they're saving each other. I mean, somebody,
Right.
you know what I'm saying? It's
Yep.
you. I know you're the hub of it, but really it has nothing to do with you at some point. They're saving
right.
each other.
Yup. And that's the most gratifying.
Yeah.
Like I just did, like right before you, I did a thing for positivelyounstoppable.com for the challenge. And, it's 2:00 in the afternoon. So, I mean, how many people are really going to go on there and really catch it live? Well, I had pretty quickly, 130 people come on there right away. And there was in the chat room, there was 98 people the whole time because they just wanted to know and they had questions to ask, and they were really good questions. And in next couple of weeks, it'll be people who were champions and when you see how much they've changed and who they are today, it goes down to what David Geffen said. We are a figment of our imagination, and some people just do it better than others. The people who do it better than others believe they can. That's all it is.
And sometimes I might be able to tap into mine by watching yours and going, you know what? I need to tap into my imagination a little more by watching. You know what I'm saying? It might spark me to think better too. Hey, I do this every time I have first guest. It's a quick game of Would You Rather. I ask you quick questions and you just tell me the answer you like. Are you okay with that?
Sure.
Here we go.
Sure.
If you could only take one vacation for the rest of your life, DDP, do you go to the ocean or the mountains?
Ocean.
Okay. All right. Now, I'm not going to say there's right and wrong answers, but if there were,
I get it.
If there were, I'd probably go to the mountains. Music you listen to when you work out? When you yoga, or other workouts? What do you listen to?
Either rock or country.
Okay. You got a default 80s rock, new rock, or is there 70s genre? What is it?
It could max from 70s to 80s to 90s. I mean, okay. I love all rock and roll. My go-to shit is, the metal hair bands of the 80s, man.
Yeah.
That was just great music. But I really love it all, man. In excess, I love all those, those cats. I put together because of Spotify, you get that medley of stuff,
Yeah, I will say this real quick now that you've said that. You and some of those pictures from the 80s and 90s look like you could have been a band or a wrestling group, because you had that hair. Sure. Hey, favorite food. If you've got a cheat day, you're eating something that you're not supposed to. What's your favorite cheat food?
Oh, mine's still clean, but Not a Moo is the best non-dairy ice cream on the planet. And I'm going to take it with a gluten-free brownie and mix it up. And then it's going to be like ice cream cake.
I've got to try it. I'm going to go back and listen to this and put that together and see if I like it. I've never had it. All right, here's the wrestling question, and then we'll wrap it up. The best trash talkers in your mind, top 3, 4, 5, whatever, best trash talkers in wrestling history that you either wrestled with or liked.
Well, God, there's so many. Jake is on his own level at, so much higher than so many people, especially for how he did that. Dusty Rhodes was, the true Tower of Power, man in the hour, too sweet to be sour. Superstar Billy Graham, Randy Savage, Ric Flair, Stone Cold Steve Austin.
Was one of the better ones.
Rock, DDP.
Heck yeah.
I think all the guys had so many. Kevin Nash, he did his own version of it. there's so many guys that were so good, man, that you could just listen to them talk.
I do that every now and then. Do you have one favorite night you remember, whether it was an interview for you or a match that you had that you look back on and go, that's one of those nights I wish I could have again, or interviews, or there's just too many of them?
Man, there was so many. My favorite moment off of the big stage, like out of a pay-per-view in an arena, like before with no cameras. And Randy Savage and I had shot our angle and we are white hot, meaning like we don't even really have to do anything. And the people are screaming their ass off. And we were getting ready. We were building towards the pay-per-view, which means we're going to be, we got 26 out of 30 days. We're wrestling every night in a different arena, with no cameras on. And Randy was such the consummate professional. And, Randy didn't make decisions right away. He thought about them, like thinking. And every single night, I'd be in the locker room and he'd be in there, and Arn Anderson would come in. And so, what are we going to do tonight, Randy? And, every night I got my ass whooped by many NWO guys at the end, or I hit a couple of diamond cutters and then somebody stuffed me, and maybe I escaped that night. Randy would come up with all these different scenarios. Most times I got my ass just whooped, and they're throwing shit, at the whole NWO as I'm laying there,
Yeah.
And this one night right before the pay-per-view, it's on my 40th birthday. And Arn comes in, he goes, "So, Randy, what do you want to do tonight?" And he was tying up his boots at the time, and he looked up and he went, "Think I want to take the diamond cutter." And he went back to tying his boots up. And Arn, who I love, but back in the day, me and him had some tension when he was on the booking committee, and basically told me I was never going to be a top guy because I wasn't seen as a top guy. It was a lot of frustration between the two of us. I mean, I love him today, but back then, there was a lot of tension between us. And now, because one of the things he said to me, he said, because, friggin', unless you beat Rick, Luger, Sting, Hogan, or Savage, unless you beat any of those guys, you're never going to be a top guy. And none of those guys are ever going to put you over. Again, there's tension.
Yeah.
Whether he felt that exactly or he was just trying to dig on me, whatever it was, it's something I never forgot.
And then Randy says that.
He apologized to me.
Yeah.
But it wasn't this day. It was later. And Arn looked at me and he went, well, Diamond, I hope you understand how good this could be for your career. And I just looked at her and I went, yeah. Now, again, it don't mean shit with no cameras on, all right? But what Randy was doing was testing the water.
Yeah.
We went out there, and this is like, we were so hot that we would sell out 22,000 seats in 7 minutes. And I know that because we broke Prince's record in the Target Center with me and Randy on top on a Monday Nitro. At the end of the night, we're going to wrestle again. Dark, no cameras on. And so they asked to take a picture of me. They couldn't find one of Randy. So they put record holder, 7 minutes, 22 minutes, 7 minutes, sellout. And so this is around that time, but we're in a little 10,000 seat, like hockey, one of those small, AAA hockey leagues.
Yeah.
And there's got to be 12,000 people in there because there's people everywhere. And it was so hot. Like the air was so thick and the smoke and everything. And we went out there and, man, we tore it down. He beat the fuck out of me and made me fight for everything. And finally, I'm blowing my comeback. He stops me and he picks me up into a slam. He goes, "Diamond cutter." And I flipped it in a cutter and the roof blew off. And now I'm laying on my face and he's laying on his back. And I wait about, 10 seconds. And then I just throw my arm over him and the whole place, 1, 2, 3, explosion. And I felt like God took the cone of silence and put it down on us. And I could hear him clear as bells say, well, I guess we knew what we're doing for Spring Stampede. Oh. Now, that was the next night, the day after my 40th birthday. And he put me over clean in the middle, man.
Wow.
And when I tell you, Clint, it changed my life. Like, I couldn't really fathom it. Like, how much it really, like, it took me and put me on a rocket. Like, the NWO had teed it up when I dropped Kevin and Scott, when it came about putting on the NWO shirt and then dropped them both. You know, the two hottest guys in professional wrestling, both brothers of mine, you know, and they made that happen. I came up with the idea, but they made it happen. And it took 10 weeks to happen. And Randy came right after that. So Randy putting me over, it put me like in a different spot. Like, it put me up there next to Sting and Hogan and, you know, everybody was anybody. I was right up there. In 97, I was WCW's Wrestler of the Year. You know, me and Stone Cold Steve Austin were white hot. Him in WWF, me in WCW. And we talked about that on his podcast. You know, we were going at the same rate. If they'd have pushed me like they pushed Stone Cold, who knows what would have happened? You know,
I will tell you, you've got some. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I said, I would love to be in an alternate universe and go back and just see what would have happened. We'd love to. You know, but Stone Cold, to me, he goes down. If he has the run that Shawn Michaels, who's another amazing cat, a Ric Flair or Dusty Rhodes, you know, if he'd have had the run, like the length, I think it's, you know, Stone Cold goes down as the best ever. I really think that. But because his run was only about 8 years, where Randy Savage's was 22. Yeah. Hulk Hogan's was 30. Ric Flair's was 30. So it's tough to compare. But if Steve didn't if he didn't get dropped on his head and break his neck, and ain't nobody. That power Stone Cold Steve Austin had over people was unbelievable. Unbelievable.
Yeah. He's still one of my favorites of all time. And by the way, your impression of Randy, the Macho Man's pretty good. Good job. I imagine y'all do impressions of each other every now and then just to get on each other. Yeah, that was pretty good. Hey, DDPYoga.com for everything about you. Is there a favorite yoga pose you have? Last question, and we're getting ready to sign off. Is there one pose
dude, I'm going to put over the air. The foot over the air is my trademark, man. Holding that foot up here, you know, over your head. I can hold it there, bro. Like here for 60 seconds and then go here for 60 seconds. That's core strength at a different level. Yeah. You know, and, you know, the weights, no matter what, you can't do them forever.
Yeah.
Because they're going to get the tears and the tears and the tears, you know. For me, and weights hurt you. Weights are very unforgiving. Where my program, I can't tell you how many times I walked out of the gym going, oh my God, why did my shoulder, oh my back, oh my knee, my hip, oh God, I think I tore my bicep on that. I can't tell you how many times I walked out of the gym thinking, why did I do that? I have never, and this is what I'm leaving on, I have never gotten off the mat saying to myself, man, I wish I didn't do that.
Feel better.
Never. Every single time, I feel better, stronger, and younger. Every single time. That's my out. I want to get you on it. Did Marlon hook you up with it yet?
No, not yet, but no.
I'm going to make sure. Close your thing out and we'll talk.
That's perfect. And real quick, everybody go check out the website, join this challenge, and good luck podcasting with Jake the Snake, man. I wish you the very best.
Thank you, buddy.
Thank you. Bye, everybody.